Welcome to Interface. Today we have an accomplished ICT specialist, Mr. Pichan from Department of Computing and Electrical Engineering, Curtin University, Australia. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much.
And before joining Curtin University, he was working with International Atomic Energy Agency, Department of Safeguards. Sir, in IAEA, you had a very high profile
Unique
role and in safeguarding the ICT assets. So, at this outset, can you just describe the evolution of cyber security and where we stand today?
Okay, thank you, Lajish, and thank you to this program, and really much appreciated for having me for the discussion today. Well, to answer the questions, let me start with a brief introduction of how Internet has enabled us today in our daily life. As you know, without Internet and without email, we cannot pass a day nowadays. That has become so much part and parcel of our life. Internet has enabled the organizations and the corporations to conduct their business much more efficiently. The globalization, it has changed the scenario of globalization. It reaches out to the mass in a very efficient and effective way. Universities started adopting to reach out to the students in a much more efficient way to deliver the courses and classes. So, the whole of the world has changed since the Internet started commercialization started from early 1990s. I would say that this is the most important thing that has happened after the industrial revolutions that happened in the early 18th century. Now, having said that, let me also say that the Internet, when it was first developed, it was not developed with security or information security in mind. It was an offshoot of a defense project carried out by US government. So, the information security aspect or protecting the data security came as an afterthought when the people found out the vulnerabilities on that one, when criminals or crooks started using the vulnerabilities and trying to exploit that one to steal identity, to steal information, and thereby to steal say financial records and personal records or conduct crime on the cyberspace. People woke up. Then government started enacting on that. Industry have to take an extra step forward, a major way forward, because they are finally responsible for providing services to the people. They are selling things on the website, so they have to be much more careful to protect the people's credit card informations, identity informations, the banking sites. So, they have to be responsible. So, they came forward with much more vigor. Government enacted laws to protect the people. So, we came through various steps, and now I would say that we made a quantum leap. We made a real advancement in the security science, information security science as a branch of computer science itself. And we are progressing with that one. But as you know, the technology is leaping forward with a much faster space. So, still there is a much more way to go, and there is much more to reach out, and there is a highly skilled resources need to be there, and there is a resource gap over there. So, universities should look into addressing all these gaps as well. So, though we made progress, there is still a lot more room to grow.
Securing data, information assets and individual identity is a very critical problem today. In this context, could you please explain what are the major security threats and the challenges that we face today?
Very valid question, Lajish. I would say the major security challenges today, there is a few top security challenges that has been listed by the researchers and that has been reported in the security magazines and things like that. Let me quote a few of that. The first one I should say is the espionage that countries are carrying out. So, that is what we call the sort of a state-sponsored espionage. What I mean by saying that is countries, they themselves engage in this kind of activities of profiling or looking at the other nations' critical infrastructure, other nations' critical research activities, other countries, how their leap in technology and other advancements. So, they conduct espionage and security intelligence services using cyberspace on different nations. So, this way, I mean, this intelligence gathering or conducting espionage activities using cyberspace is a major challenge, is one of the major challenges in this coming era. The second biggest problem that has been reported is what we call as the cloud computing or cloud migration. What I mean by saying so is that organizations and corporations are moving or adopting cloud computing technology nowadays. The cloud service providers like Amazon, like Microsoft, like Google, what do they do is that they provide storage space, they provide the infrastructure required for running a company's corporate database or applications, or both, using their services, using their storage space or using their services. So, the companies, what they can do is that it is a great economy of scale for them. They can buy the services from these companies and pay as you go basis. So, for small startup companies or even for big companies, they don't need to have a big IT department anymore. They outsource all their IT department to this cloud service providers, and once they have got what they all need is a good internet connectivity, and they connect to their cloud computing technology or cloud computing interface using internet, and they use their cloud services or cloud environment to run their applications and systems. But what happens is that, looking from a security point of view, information security aspects, there is a big risk over there. Your corporate data is hosted in someone else's computer systems that probably will be sitting in another jurisdiction itself, on a different country itself, on a different nation itself. So, that goes over there. So, what kind of a laws govern the protection of the data is beyond your control. So, there are a lot of security challenges regarding that one, because a company, when they collect your personal information, they are bound to protect it, and there are privacy laws. Different government has issued privacy laws to govern it. So, there is a big problem over there. This associated with that one, you can say buy the services, storage space from this kind of a service providers for free. For the first gigabyte is for free, which anyone can get it and access the space by creating a user ID and passwords, say from Dropbox, from Google Drive, from Microsoft SkyDrive, wherever it is. So, what the crooks does is that they get their cloud computing services facility, use that as a platform to commit cyber crime or to release malware and worms into the space, into the internet. And they use that as a platform to launch attack on somebody else. Once they accomplish their mission, they relinquish their space and the services, and they disappear into ether without leaving any trace of any action that is being done. Before they leave, they are so clever enough even to delete whatever the traces of activities that they have done. So, the cloud service providers have to come forward, have to be really grateful, really have to take this into account to keep a traceability of action that has happened over there, so that it can be, that it can give to the law enforcement authorities. And also it has become a big problem for the law enforcement itself to carry out investigation process because of the jurisdiction aspect of it, because the data is hosted in someone else's country. And if they want to seize the hard disk which contains the data, that itself causes problem, because the data can host someone else, the disk can host someone else's data too. So there is a lot of this kind of issues which is a really challenge to these things now. So these are two major issues. The third one which has come across, what I say, is the real password management. By password management, what I mean is that passwords of the system accounts, which is highly privileged accounts. So who has got access to it? Who can use it? What are they doing with that one? These all need to be really monitored. So this is the third, say, biggest challenge of that has been reported. The password management issue, especially for sysadmin passwords or superuser passwords. The fourth issue which I would let's say is that the insider threat. What I mean by insider threat, there could be people working for an organization with a malicious intent. They could be willing to carry out or cooperate with others to carry out attacks on inside the corporate network for a malicious activity or financial gain. Or there could be any disgruntled employees too. This has been a problem for a long time now, but it still continues to be a problem. People leave the organization with vast knowledge about how the internal networks and system have been architected, have been built, and that becomes a leverage for them to carry out an attack on the inside of the system, because they have got the insider knowledge. So this is what the insider threat is. The last, but that is not the least, which I would say is a security challenge, is what we call as the mobile devices, the widespread usage of mobile devices to access the internet, to surf the web, to look at the social networking sites, and also bringing the devices into the corporate network inside the firewall and trying to connect it to the corporate systems with the keyword nowadays that is used in the industry is what we call as BYOD. It stands for bring your own device and connecting to the corporate network. These are all big challenges, because there should be proper governance, policies and structure and restrict all these things. Otherwise, devices that is being used or frequently used outside of the corporate systems or corporate network and coming and using that inside can transfer, can transmit, or can carry various kind of security vulnerabilities or malicious program or into the corporate network. So these things that we have to be extremely careful.
Being it a major issue, could you please describe this into simple terms such that the real importance of cyber security could reach to the wider sector of the community?
Good point. Very well said. Okay. Let me answer this one this way. In very simple terms, I would say there are three vectors to the whole of these cyber security issues. One, looking from an individual perspective. As an individual, you can be a victim. What I mean by that is that your identity can be stolen, your email passwords can be stolen, your online banking information or financial transaction information can be stolen, your credit card information is at risk when you do an online transaction if that is not very well protected. So by you becoming a victim of this cyber theft is a real scenario. It is something waiting to happen unless you take extraordinary precautions. Now, once you become the victim, of course, what happens is that if I could explain, if your identity or your email is being stolen, then the people can use your emails and your email logon and can get onto your emails and can send emails on your behalf, which you don't know at all. If that happens, and which is of a certain security risk, you are liable for whatever has happened using your email, which of course I'm sure that people do not want to be over that in that kind of a scenario. If your online transaction details are being stolen. Again, it is really affects you in the sense that you will see that your banking records have been affected, your credit card being stolen. So, it probably will take a long time before you even realize that your online informations and credit card informations or banking information is being stolen by victims. So, people probably would have used it to carry out transactions. So, there are real problems where your identity is being stolen and it is being used maliciously, and if it is being carried out to use illegal activities, which you are finally being held responsible, you are finally being caught for that one, and you essentially is a victim of a crime and you did not commit any crime. So, this way the individual is at a major risk from that perspective. The second, I would say, from the organization. So, as an individual you are at risk, and now we come to an organization or corporation levels. Corporation has to be extremely careful when they carry out, when they implement IT systems to be, they have to secure it really well, using appropriate technology, proper process, and training the people. Training the people is the important thing, because it is often said that people are the weakest link in any kind of an information security apparatus or the posture. Now, the corporations or companies, when they collect the information from the people, when they are responsible for providing services to the people, and they are bound to protect the information that they are collecting and using. Look the situation with the banks or financial institutions, where they provide online banking services to the people. If they have to take extreme precaution and measure to protect it, otherwise they could be at risk. They are finally liable. The banks are liable if they haven't taken measures and safeguarded those in such a way that their information will not be leaked. So, for any kind of an organization, whether it is universities, academic institutions, research establishment, things of national security organizations and of that they are at risk. They have to take care of it. The third important thing I would say is looking from the national perspective, from national security perspective. I mean, I mentioned in my earlier talk that cyber espionage is a real threat that the nation as such should be aware of. So, in that kind of a scenario, the nation should have the proper cyber security laws, provisions, control systems, the cyber command or things like that, and should guard their critical infrastructure with appropriate measures, tools, technology and process in place. Otherwise, it could be a threat to the whole nation itself.
Sir, you have mentioned about stealing of personal identity such as email passwords and banking credentials, etc. So, this point of view, can you just explain, so what are the measures that an individual can take up to prevent this?
A very good point again. As an individual, you have to learn how to take care to protect your own identity in the cyberspace. In simple terms, I would say that you have to use, or people have to learn to use strong passwords, or nowadays we call passphrases. What does that mean is that the password should be as long as that of at least 15 characters in length. If it is 15 characters minimum of length, which comprising of letters, numbers, special characters and symbols, and which is not something that people can easily guess and easily make up, then your passwords are secure. But remember not to write it down anywhere and keep under the keyboard or things like that. That is a wrong culture that if you develop, you defeat the purpose. There are very many password cracking tools available, and if you use short passwords or easily guessable passwords or passwords which is a direct word from a dictionary, they can be easily cracked and people can get your or steal your identity by that way. So, this is one of the important things which one have to think of their own password itself, password management. Use strong passwords and use different passwords for different applications or different services that you use as well. Email one use password, For your online banking, use a different one. That is an example. And if possible, I would also say that you have to enable the two-factor authentication. What I mean by two-factor authentication is that it has got one more factor before you can log on to the system. The first factor being the password or the passphrase. So, say for example, you are getting onto the Gmail, Google Mail, you type in your password, and then you can also enable sending the Google server to send a code to your mobile phone. So, once if you want to log on to that one, after you type in the password, the Google server sends a code to your mobile phone, and then the code has to be typed in again for you to get on to the email systems. So, if you enable this kind of a two-factor authentication, two-step process, two-step process will give you one more level of security. So, even if your password is stolen, even if your laptop is stolen, which you forgot to log out, forgot to clear the, say for example, browsing history or things like that, you are still protected because you won't be able to get into the mail. And I would also that when you surf the web, people have to take care that website often comes with an option over there, remember my password. Think twice before keep clicking on it. I will not do that one, and that is not a good practice either. By asking the website to remember your passwords, it is storing the information inside in its own session memories, and that can be, if it is stored in clear text, of course, that can be taken away or can be siphoned away by malware, probably that is sitting over there. And this is very dangerous if you are using the websites to surf the web to check the mail on public places like internet cafe. Internet cafe, before I leave the internet cafe, I would ensure that I would log out, I clear my browsing history, and everything will be done before I relinquish the space, because it is an open place. So, these are the few things that people should take care to protect their own identity, to protect their own passwords. And when you are doing online transactions and when you are buying things and using your credit card or other kind of things, ensure that you are talking to the right server, right systems. Ensure that as an individual, they are using HTTPS protocol. They see that there is an HTTPS in the website links comes across. And as an individual, these are the main things that you should be aware of if you are as a normal user, such that the transaction is safe and secure. Okay. And there are also companies like PayPal, etc. They offer secure services. Banks do offer. Okay. So, that is the way to go about it.
Sir, let me ask now about cyber laws. So, at national level and international level, we have lots of laws for protecting the sky and seas. So, do you think that it is much harder to define laws for cyberspace?
This is a very interesting aspect, and you brought about a very interesting point of discussion too as well now. We have laws to govern the skies, we have laws to govern the high seas, and to the best of my knowledge, I have not seen any kind of laws to govern the cyberspace which countries have adhered to, or countries as a unity has agreed to, or even some sort of an international consortium to govern all this kind of a law and laws kind of point from that point of view. But having said that, let me take a step back and let us look from the point of view of a nation itself instead of international affairs. For a nation itself to enact a law, the lawmakers, the parliamentarians, etc. works in a very slow space. Technology makes a quantum leap. It jumps ahead. So, by the time the law is enacted and passed through the parliament and becomes a law, the technology has leaped forward again. So, it is always a catch a phase. It is not really a question of whether it is hard or difficult. It is not, I don't think it is hard or difficult. It can really be made, but the time that it takes to get there, but the technology is moving forward at a faster pace. So that is from the national perspective itself. From the international point of view, what I would say is that it can be very difficult for the companies to come into an agreement, to agree on cyber security cooperation issues, because I mentioned in my earlier discussion that countries themselves carry out espionage activities or cyber intelligence activities on other nations. So, they coming together to agree on a certain point is a difficult proposition. That is my point of view or my opinion on that. So, and also there are nations, for some countries the interest for may not be the same as for another country, just like for someone, say for example, the information privacy or whatever their country citizen can see, the freedom of expression will be an issue, whereas for other nations it may not be an issue. So, this is also a point when the countries talk to each other. So, this is the kind of thing that I say is a major challenge that what you are facing today. But having said that, recently the European Union agreed to cooperate on various cyber security laws, and that is a good move forward. Various international conference and seminar is happening in this area. So, though there are laws not yet there, to the best of my knowledge, countries started cooperating in this field quite widely now to attack or to counter cyber security risks.
So, thank you, sir. Thank you very much for your valuable time, and you have traveled all the way from Australia and participated in the interface program.
Thank you, and thank you, Lajish, for having me here too as well. Thanks a lot.